Hey everybody, welcome to the Atypical Life YouTube channel. This is Josh here with the wonderful Sophie Aldred.
Hello everybody, hi Josh.
Hi. So to very quickly begin this interview off, you joined the show in 1987, is that right?
I did, yeah.
Great
Yeah.
stuff.
It seems like but a mere moment ago, but you probably weren't even born then, were you?
I was born in 99, so...
There you go, you see? Yeah, oh dear, for an old person like me, it just seems like 2 minutes ago.
So how does one get a job like that? How does someone become a Doctor Who companion? Was the big audition process? How did this come about for you?
Well, it's a very good question because there was an audition. I'd been doing a lot of children's theatre. I was in the back row of the chorus in a production of Fiddler on the Roof up in Manchester. When my agent put me up for 3 episodes of Doctor Who, they were looking for somebody who could ride a motorbike and who looked younger than they really were. And I could do both those things. So my agent put me up for it. And so I had an initial audition, which was my first ever TV audition.
Wow.
I went down to London, to Shepherd's Bush, met Chris Clough, who was the director of the story that I was in, Dragonfire, the first story. I read a little bit from the script. I did a piece which we had to prepare from Daisy Pulls It Off. And I had a chat with him, and that was it. I was in there about 20 minutes maybe.
Wow.
Went back on the train to Manchester, and then a couple of weeks later I got a recall. So I went back down to London, bearing in mind the train fare was really annoyingly a lot. And I was only on equity minimum, you know, in the chorus, so I was kind of grumbling about that. And I did this. The recall was with John Nathan Turner, who was the producer at the time, and he asked me to read a bit of the script again, and I had a little chat with him. I was literally in there for 10 minutes. Wow. And then 2 weeks later, I got the part. I got the part of Ace in 3 episodes of Dragonfire. And then also my agent said they were thinking of using me for the new Doctor Who companion. Would I be up for it? And I mean, it was just so bizarre. I'd never done a screen test. I'd never been in front of a camera. I'd had literally those 2 auditions. And I think it's a very different kettle of fish nowadays. But I think in those days, John Nathan Turner was very experienced, and he went by hunches as well. So he had a feeling. And it's funny because I knew that I could play this character. I liked the character of Ace, even from that audition speech, you know.
Wow. Yeah,
that's how it happened.
That's an incredible story. Not that so little went into getting you there, but how quick it was. That's quite incredible. Yeah,
when you think about stories of people going back and back and back and getting down to the last whatever, and then, you know, and this and that and screen tests and another screen. No, there was none of that.
Wow. So with Ace, I think it's very safe to say very iconic companion now. In those final two seasons, we got an awful lot of development of her. Where did that begin, and how did you go about crafting this incredible character?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, really, I went on what was on the page. Ian Briggs, who wrote Dragonfire, and Andrew Cartmel, who was our script editor at the time, the character was kind of there. Andrew and I did talk a lot about the character of Ace as well, and Ian. It was great in those days because we had the rehearsal period, you see. So it wasn't like it is now, where you just have to learn the lines and turn up and go straight in front of the camera. We had the luxury, although we never thought we had enough time in those days. We had the luxury of having a read through together, and then a rehearsal period of like a week before the first studio block. So we were able to kind of discuss, and I was able to really feel my way into TV for a start, and into the character of Ace. But to be honest, I don't know, I identified with her, and I don't know why, because my background was very different from Ace's, but I knew that she was the character who I could give justice to, you know. And I think then I had the ideas for the costume, and costume designer and I went off. I was very clear about what I wanted, and I kind of knew the kind of girl she was as well, because don't forget, I was 24 at the time, playing a 16-year-old. So I had that kind of knowledge, I guess, of having been through that period of my life, and you know, being able to look back. Absolutely. So yeah, it was something definitely that evolved.
Absolutely. There's a more relatable element to Ace, I'd say, than a lot of the companions in the 1980s. She feels almost like a modern Who companion in that sense, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think that was down to Andrew and Ian, and Ian based the character of Ace on 3 real teenage girls who he'd been working with at an amateur theatre, Questus Theatre in Ealing.
Wow.
So he kind of he'd done his homework as well. So I think all in all, she was written in a very realistic way too.
Absolutely. And there is a journey that goes with Ace as the story goes on. I feel like, again, that's pretty much a first in the classic series for a companion to be such a part of the story. I have a feeling that's to do with Andrew Cartmel as well, but how did you see that arc going, you know? Let's say, should the show continue, did you know where Ace was going to wind up, or did you get that information from story to story, I guess?
Yeah, it really was. I mean, it wasn't like we were sort of had loads of time to sit going, I wonder what we should do. Well, Andrew may have done, but I certainly would get a script would arrive through my letterbox. I would read it, we'd rehearse it, we'd film it. You know, there wasn't, in a way, there wasn't that much thought at the time. With hindsight, it's like incredible how much of the story Ace was involved with. And I think that was partly due to, I think Sylvester and Andrew had a good few chats about his character of the Doctor, because he realized very quickly with his Doctor that this was an amazing character to play, and that the way he wanted to take it was to be a more mysterious, more kind of like in the background in a way figure. And then also you start to get in Curse of Fenric, you know, the manipulation side of his character really been in evidence before. So he was very interested in having Ace as sort of like that he was a kind of mentor figure for Ace. So, you know, for me, that worked out great because I got such a lot to do, which I love.
Oh, you're beating up Daleks, you're beating up Cybermen, wonderful stuff, you know? That's one of my favourite memories watching the show earlier on, is you just taking a bat to a Dalek.
I loved all. I absolutely loved all that. And little did I realise that it would be so kind of iconic all these years later, you know, that beating up a Dalek with a baseball bat.
Yeah, that was wonderful. So speaking about the classic series generally, and when you were there, you happened to be there in 1989, unfortunately, when the show was not renewed and it didn't come back. How did you receive that news, firstly? And what was the reaction like amongst the cast and crew, and maybe the BBC itself? How was that conveyed to you?
Well, very sensibly, John Nathan Turner, who knew that the show was not, it was going to be put on hiatus. That was the catchphrase at the time. He knew about it. I don't know when he first knew about it, but he certainly didn't let anyone else know. I think Andrew Cartmel may have known, because in Survival, which is the story that we filmed penultimately, because Ghostlight was the very last one, but he rewrote the end of Survival, Andrew Cartmel, with that gorgeous speech that still brings a tear to my eye. And that was a kind of like a bit of closure for that story, because they knew that that was going to be transmitted last. But certainly we had no inkling that that was going to happen. I was on what's called an optional contract for the next year, which was that either one of us could say yes or no for the following year. Cast and crew, we finished filming Ghostlight. We had our customary party in room B something or other at the BBC. We all said goodbye, see you next year. And then it wasn't until several weeks later where I was rehearsing for Corners, which was a children's program that I presented for some years, that there was a phone call from Sylvester in the office, and I went and took it, and he said, he told me the news. And then I subsequently got a letter from John Nathan Turner saying, you know, really sorry, but it's not going to happen next year. And it was a shock, to be honest, because it was so not on the cards. And we all just felt, I mean, for a few years afterwards, every time sort of March, April came around, it would be like a sort of a grief, because that was the time when we'd be starting a new season. And it was a big missing for a while. I mean, thankfully, there's been other stuff in a way, you know, and Sylvester and I have been incredibly fortunate to have been working, you know, to have had lots of work subsequently. But even so, it was a real hole, because it was such a fun, great, demanding, brilliant show to be involved with.
Absolutely. And then we get into the 1990s itself. So with no sign of the show really coming back, there seems to be a lot of stuff out there still, starting off with Doctor Who book range that started in 1990, I think, called the Doctor Who New Adventures. And Ace was very heavily prominent in that. I just wanted to know if you read them, or if you were informed about them at the time, etc. Were you involved in anything with those books?
Do you know, it's interesting. I can't quite remember how much or little I was involved. Peter Darvell Evans, who was the boss at Virgin Publishing at the time, was a big Doctor Who fan, and he was very keen on the character of Ace, I think. And he also used a lot of the writers who, you know, like people like Mark Platt, and so and I did read some of them. I can't remember whether I also got sent the covers, which I thought were fantastic. You know, I loved the covers. But we didn't have any close involvement in them. Other than, because, I mean, to be honest, we'd moved on by then. You know, as I said, I was doing lots of presenting and stuff like that. So Doctor Who became a thing that, oh, well, I did that job, and that's great that they're bringing some books out. You know, it wasn't a sort of a big thing in a way.
Of course. I only ask because there's a picture floating around online of you dressing up as the book version of Ace.
Yeah, well, that was when that was about 5 years after the show had been put on hiatus, and a good friend of mine, Mike Tucker, who was a visual effects. He was in the visual effects team on most of the stories that I did. We'd kept in touch. I loved the visual effects department. They were great guys. They were always, you know, up for a laugh and blowing stuff up, and, you know, had a great job making models, which I was very interested in. So anyway, Mike and I got on very well together. And I can't remember, I think it may have been him who suggested that we make a scrapbook of our time on Doctor Who, because both of us used to take photographs around the set, and we had these fantastic photographs, and we wanted to be able to show the fans. And so we went to Peter Darvell Evans at Virgin and showed him our photographs, and he practically started drooling on the spot, and he commissioned us to write this book, Ace, the Inside Story of the End of an Era. And so we had great fun doing it. We used a lot of our friends in fandom and beyond to help us do it. Gary Russell in particular, he edited it for us, which is great. And Mark, I can't remember his surname now, but he brilliantly did all the graphic design and put it together. And I'm so glad we did it, because it's a beautiful, beautiful book, and it's a really lovely memory. But we were thinking about what we could do for a cover. And I don't know whether it was Peter who suggested that I dress up. I think it probably was, in the New Adventures outfit. And it was quite funny because I'd never worn anything like that before, funnily enough. And we had to go to a rather, a sort of a private members shop in the East End somewhere. And it had a kind of a little blackboard outside. I think it was called, as I remember, I think it was called Shh, was the name of the shop. And we walked in, and there were all kind of interesting things on the walls and sort of on display. And the woman there, she looked at me, she gave me this, it was actually a rubber suit, the suit. And I said, oh, great. She said, well, do you want to try it on? You'll need this. And she gave me this bottle of talc. And I had to put talcum powder on all over my body. And then put this thing on, because otherwise it kind of gets hot and then you can't get it off again, you know. Anyway, I tried it on and we did the shoot. And I can't remember, I think Mike made the belt and the props and everything. And another good friend of mine, Paige Bell, she did the makeup. And we had great fun doing that. And then Robin Pritchard, who again is an old friend of mine through fandom, he's a brilliant photographer. He came and took the photographs. And then we also did the one for the front cover, which was me with a burning Dalek and a baseball bat. And it was the sort of like, you know, Ace then, Ace now, as it was.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Because then there's another half of Doctor Who in the 90s, which was the visual medium, where a lot of companies would go forth and make actual stories. And you, if you don't mind my saying, you were probably one of the most prolific people in these sort of spin-off media ventures. Shakedown, Return of the Sontarans, one of the Stranger movies, these sorts of things. How did they come about for you? Did you enjoy getting to be in sort of that world again, I suppose?
Yeah, I loved it. It was great. And the thing is that by that time, I'd been around fandom for a few years by then. And so we got to know people. I mean, even, you know, now, some of the people I know through fandom, I've known for over 30 years. Wow. They're now the people who I've, you know, who are making the program, who the Big Finish guys, you know, Jason Haig-Ellery and Nick Briggs and Keith Barnfather at Real Time Pictures.
Just interviewed Keith, he's wonderful.
Oh yeah, he's great, isn't he? Bill Baggs, who was responsible for Stranger, Kevin Davis, who did Shakedown. They're all, I mean, I'm on Facebook with them all, you know, they're mates, you know, it's more than, they're more than kind of fans who've turned professional, if you like. I've known them longer than I've known my husband, you know. Wow. So so at the time, and I was really like, the thing is, as an actor, you just want to work. You want to work, you want to play characters, you want to explore. So things like The Stranger was great. I'd never played a green alien before in a cave in Wookiee Hole. Shakedown, I'd never played a princess with wearing a sort of a funny lampshade thing, and also working with other people. You know, I love working with other people, and I'm always up for anything, really, up for a laugh.
I suppose very, very quickly on that, then you got to work with Colin Baker in The Stranger as well. So how was it? You weren't working with another Doctor per se, but it was working with another Doctor actor. How was that for you? It
was great. I mean, the thing is that you're always working with another actor, but Colin, I got to know a bit through conventions, so it was like, you know, I'm working with my mate. You know, it was wonderful.
Wow. No, and it's wonderful that fan media and books and fan film sort of things have kept going, because even going into modern day, that's how Doctor Who came back. Russell T Davies was a big fan. He went on to make the Sarah Jane Adventures. And just very briefly, I wanted to ask, there was a great rumour, unfortunately, when the show ended, because Elizabeth Sladen is no longer with us, unfortunately. One of the rumours was that the next season was going to feature Ace. Are we okay to talk about that? Great
sure.
stuff.
I knew nothing about it, of course. Sylvester and I always say we're the last people to hear about anything. But what happened was I was taken out for a very nice lunch with a guy called Benjamin Cook, who's a wonderful interviewer. And as we sat down, he said, "Oh, by the way, Russell T Davies says hello." He said, "I emailed him last night," because they wrote this brilliant book together called The Writer's Tale, and which is based on their emails to each other over a period of time. And Benjamin said to me, "Yeah, did you know of the plan for the Sarah Jane Adventures?" I said, "No, what?" And he said, "Oh, well, Russell said that if it had gone ahead, and sadly, as you say, it was not to be, the next guest, if you like, that they wanted to have in, they'd obviously had Katie Manning, was Ace." And he'd even sort of got a rough idea of the first, how it would happen. So he said apparently there'd be a sort of a sleek sports car that would draw up in front of Sarah Jane's house, and you'd cut to the door opening of the car, and this like legs with high heels would swing out of the car, and then walk up this drive, the back view, walk up to the front door, and then it would cut to Sarah Jane's point of view, POV. The door would open. Ace, now in this kind of business attire with high heels, and that would be it. And he said, "And don't worry, because she'd soon be getting her Doc Martin boots on again and running around and bashing things up." But I would so have loved to have done that, partly because I knew Liz from conventions, and we really got on very well. And she was one of my companions growing up. There was Jo Grant and there was Sarah Jane Smith. And I would absolutely love to have worked with her. It would have been amazing to do that, but sadly it was not to be.
Incredible work as well, because there were so many rumours about that season as well. There were rumours that Tom Baker was going to be in it, that Sylvester McCoy was going to come back. No,
it was real. I was going to be in it.
Wow, that's incredible to hear. And of course, you did get a mention in the show. Ace got a mention.
Yes, well, this led to a whole load of stuff, didn't it? Yeah, a Charitable Earth. Yeah. And I'll tell you something. I didn't get it for ages that Charitable Earth was ACE.
I have a feeling that Russell just one day just went, "I am a genius," when he thought about it,
Well, he is a genius. There's no doubt about that.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of a Charitable Earth and continuing the Ace character into modern day, I'm hoping my green screen here doesn't take it away. There we go.
Oh yes, you have to just put it in front of you, I'm afraid.
There we go.
No, well, that's very suitable, isn't it? It's very sci-fi, but very, very, very interesting.
The spatial remnants of At Childhood's End right over here. Exactly. I wanted to talk to you an awful lot about that, because not too many companions get to write their own story. And I think that's wonderful.
I'm so lucky. And that came about through just like an email from Steve Cole, who I'd known from BBC Books. I first met him doing short trips many years ago. I think I recorded one with Nicholas Courtney was doing one, and I did one. Anyway, Steve's a lovely guy and a great writer in his own right. And he contacted me and said, did you know that Tom Baker was asked to write this book? I said, no, had no idea. He said, well, you're next. Penguin Random House want to, want you to write a book. How about it? And I thought, oh my goodness, it's all very well writing Ace with lots of pictures. He said, don't worry, because Mike Tucker and I will be there to help. And initially it was going to be, well, don't mention Mike Tucker and Steve Cole have had anything to do with it. And I said, no, absolutely not. They are, if we're going to collaborate, I want this to be a real collaboration. So it's got my name on the cover, but it really is a labour of love by the three of us. And we got together to discuss ideas in a cafe quite near here. And they'd already come up with some ideas, and they wanted me to sort of see what I thought. It was brilliant. I loved it straight away, what they thought. And then what I wanted to do was, I'd not long ago shot the trailer for the season 26 Blu-ray box set with Ace as Ace now, as Dorothy, in this penthouse overlooking the Tower of London. This sort of melancholy feel about her, this kind of, she's been through a lot. She's had a lot of grief in her life. And I wanted to bring all that. I wanted to bring, this sort of, the loneliness of Ace. I wanted to bring that to it. And the sort of, because she's had these adventures, it's molded her in a particular way where she doesn't ever quite fit back into society or relationship or whatever. And of course, I was really dead keen to get the scene with the 13th Doctor right. And another thing I wanted to do was to tie up all the ends, because as you were saying earlier, Ace has had a myriad of endings, beginnings, timelines. There's an amazing fan who has written a complete timeline of Ace across all the media, and it's incredible. And I wanted to kind of pull that together, if you like, and explain, why does Ace support Charlton Athletic if she lives in Perivale? Surely she'd have supported a team like Queen's Park Rangers, and how is it she speaks with quite a posh voice when really she would have been speaking with a Cockney accent coming from Perivale, well, not Cockney strictly speaking, but a West London accent. So I wanted to bring all that to it as well.
Oh, absolutely. And you got a bit of almost complete closure on the Doctor as well, like their relationship. You get to see the flashback segments of the 7th Doctor, and you see how 13 interacts with her. It's absolutely wonderful. And I had the privilege of listening to this on audio, so I must say your 13 impression is incredible.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, I've done a few books now as 13, and I don't know, I just, well, I hope she'd agree. She'd probably think it's terrible.
I would hope not. But that leads, this is only a hypothetical from me. Given the opportunity, would you ever look into writing for the show itself? Would you look into maybe doing Big Finish, something like that?
Do you know what? If I'm really honest, writing is not my favorite thing.
Yeah.
As I said before, I love working with people. I love communicating. I'm a people person most of the time. And I think writing is a sort of, it's quite a solitary job. And I don't enjoy that part of it. And also, to be honest, writing for Big Finish or I think you have to know more than I do about Doctor Who in a way, because the writers who write for I blooming take my hat off to them. They're incredible.
Gone on to create so many things for themselves that the show have pulled back on, that they've taken from Big Finish, so they really do deserve their props. Absolutely.
Yes, exactly. And so many, where do they come up with their ideas? I have no idea. Just as I think, surely they can't have thought of something for Ace, that's different.
Yeah.
It sure is, multifaceted.
There's an awful lot of that they just draw upon all the time. They'll put someone in a completely different. There's a musical Big Finish story with the Sixth Doctor, and it's incredible. You just wouldn't expect something like that.
I'd love to have done that one.
Well, I guess whilst on the topic of Big Finish, you've been involved in quite a bit. You've done some audios as Ace. How have you found that experience on audio as opposed to physically playing Ace?
Well, it's funny because very soon after the show was cancelled, Sylvester and I started doing audios. We initially did them for BBV, Bill Baggs, who was kind of like a mate of ours from fandom.
Yeah.
And so we started these stories. I remember we recorded them in somebody's basement flat.
Yeah.
And we had some people writing them. Like there was this guy who was a fan called Mark Gatiss. I mean, who's he?
He'll never go anywhere.
And so we started doing them. We love working. Sylvester and I, we just love working. We loved the people. We loved working together. We loved the characters, so that was really good fun to do. Now, Bill got, he kind of shot himself in the foot a bit because he hadn't got the BBC license and he was called BBV. He was doing the Professor and Ace. Ace was actually a licensed character. The Professor, the BBC eventually found out and went, isn't this a bit like Doctor Who? And said, no, you can't do it anymore. So Jason at Big Finish, he created the company Big Finish, and he went along to the BBC, and he realized that the BBC's heart wasn't really in Doctor Who at the time. And he said, well, can I have the license? They said, yep. And that's how it began. And so we did, if not the first Big Finish audio, a very close first. And again, we recorded, first of all, in a studio in Fulham, which was owned by a guy, Daniel Cohen, who was a fan, so everybody was fans who were professionals. We just, and we did the first one, or maybe nearly the first one. And then we went over to Brixton, started recording it, the original Moat Studios. And then the Moat Studios, when Toby went to Westbourne Park, that we went over there. And it's become an empire, it began as this sort of like small business. I think in those days, audio adventures weren't really on the radar so much. But then, of course, there'd been this whole legacy of Doctor Who fans recording their own fan
of course
and stuff, so it kind of carried on from there.
Absolutely. I spoke to Bill quite a while back, and you got to give him props for being one of the first to try and produce these things. They're wonderful. And
Bill was a complete innovator, and if it hadn't been for him, I don't know whether, well, I'm not sure whether Big Finish would have happened. He really, and he the videos he did as well, the Stranger videos. I mean, he would just like pour everything into them. No, it was amazing what Bill did.
Wonderful. And that concludes all the questions I have. But I always like to give people an opportunity, if they have anything to promote right now, if they have anything they wish to let the viewing public know about, maybe something you're going to be in soon, anything of that nature. Do you have anything you'd like to tell people?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, I have been spending a lot of lockdown in my airing cupboard recording audiobooks, and I've really enjoyed doing the books that I've been doing. I've been doing some great ones, actually. There's quite a few sort of science fiction based one. If you're interested, have a look on Audible under my name, and then you can see. I've done a couple now by a wonderful writer who I love called Adrian Tchaikovsky, who is, I mean, I think he's a Doctor Who fan as well, but that's amazing. And then what's the one I've just done? I probably can't remember. I'm not allowed to mention the name yet because it's not published, but that's another great one. So yes, that's been my life really. And then also I did recently a play online, completely different subject matter, which we'll probably be doing again. And you know, we may put up online, called, it's a wonderful play called Mum Fun, which is about a mum who has a stroke and then dementia. Ooh. And it's quite a heavy theme, but it's beautifully written by a friend of mine, and it's really a two-hander, the daughter and the mum. And I have the great privilege of playing an 80-year-old woman with dementia. Wow. Which is very great for me to do that. So that's at the moment. And then look out for conventions. I set up a website as well in lockdown, so and I'm hoping to get that a bit more kind of, you know, with a few pages that I can you know, contribute to. And so look out for that. I've got a shop for the first time in my life. Fantastic. A little shop on my website.
What sort of stuff are you selling in the shop? I'm going to be putting all this in the description of the video, so
you can ask for autographs. I've got photographs there that I can personalize, and I've got the book, I've got the audio, and I've got a kind of a poster magazine which I love, which I did with a wonderful guy called Des Skin. I don't know if you know Des. He was the first editor of Doctor Who magazine. He conceived Doctor Who magazine, and he's made me this brilliant poster mag, which is great fun.
Wow, that's absolutely fantastic. So everything you've mentioned, I will be putting in the description below so people can go and view it. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been a wonderful experience, very eye-opening.
Thank you so much. It's been wonderful to talk to you.
Fantastic. Bye, guys. There we are.